Namaskaram, everybody. Let's begin. Om Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarvavigno Prashantaye Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambam Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sadha Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Deva Maheshwaraha Gurur Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Sadguru Padukam Pujayami Tarpayami Namaha Madharme Madhukaita Bhagni Mahishaf Pranapaharodhyame Hela Nirmita Dhumralochana Vadhe He Chandamundardhini Nisheshi Krita Rakta Bhijadanuja Nitye Nishumbhapahe Shumbhadvansini Samhara Suduritan Durge Namastembhike Durge Namastembhike Durge Namastembhike. Welcome all of you for this session on Śrīmad Devī Bhāgavatam Kathā Śravaṇam of Canto 1, Chapter 1 to 9. I hope you have all done the Mula Parayana Śravaṇam the other day. You have all done the Mula Parayana Śravaṇam, and here today we are here to listen to the Kathā Śravaṇam. In the Māhātmyam, the Devī Māhātmyam very clearly explained to us that Śravaṇam is the highest quality, and listening alone is going to give us the highest good, which is beyond even the concept of moksha. And now let us proceed into the chapters. How I'm going to do this class? I'm dividing the entire way of my teaching into three aspects. One, I'll shortly tell you the stories that are there in each aspect of the chapter, the pastimes that are there, number one. And number two, how it is deeply philosophically connected to the entire idea of society, life, and living in it, and all the aspects of human emancipation that is related with Upasana. And the third aspect will be the conclusion of the session, in which I'll be talking about the practical relevance of Bhagavatam in terms of these chapters. I hope it is clear to all of you. And with this idea that I'm going to give, or the framework in which I'm giving you, I hope the reading will become easier for all of you, because you all also have Kathā textbooks. Yes or no? The stories textbook is also you have got. And simultaneously reading and writing is what is very important. And I'm expecting that you all are going to do that. The chapter 1, the sacred assembly and the intention of the Purana. At the sacred forest of Naimisharanyam, a great assembly of rishis gathered, having resolved to perform a prolonged sacrifice for the welfare of the worlds. That is what we have understood, students. So, what happened? These sages, established in austerity, approached Suta Maharishi with humility and reverence. And they expressed that although they had studied many shastras and heard numerous narrations, their hearts longed for that wisdom which grants both worldly harmony and ultimate liberation. Students, I think this is the point in which we are all here, and that's the reason we are essentially trying to understand Devi Bhagavatam. Further, they acknowledged Suta as one of the most revered sages who had directly received the Puranic wisdom from the lineage of Vyasa Maharishi himself, who is the author of the 18 Mahapuranas, including the Devi Bhagavatam, and therefore requested Suta Maharishi to narrate that Purana which reveals the supreme truth in its fullness. The assembled sages asked Suta Maharishi very specific question, that is specifically for the narration that establishes the greatness of Devi, the mother of the universe, Jagannatha, because it is through her grace that dharma is protected, jnanam is awakened, and bhakti becomes fruitful. They started that in this age, human beings are highly distracted. Just imagine they are referring to their times, and what about in our times where we are completely immersed in the time of reels, actually. So their minds are unstable and their intellect clouded with desire. Only through attentive listening to the Puranas does the intellect becomes refined and purified. This is the mantra that we need to understand, students, that this listening is very powerful and therapeutic, that it can actually bring in the reformations that we are looking for ages and ages, through various processes. Thus, they requested Suta Maharishi to narrate Śrīmad Devī Bhāgavatam, which they declared to be equal to the Vedas in meaning and in power. Suta Maharishi was highly pleased by their sincerity, acknowledged their request, and stated that this Purana was revealed by Vyasa Maharishi himself, containing the highest truth, which is regarded that Devi is Brahman, both manifested and unmanifested, the Nirguna and the Saguna Swarupam, or the ideas or the ideological standpoint of Brahma Tattva. He explained that this Purana does not contradict the Vedas, but rather unfolds their inner meaning, revealing that all the Devatas in the world and all the beings function only through one primordial understanding, which is nothing but Shakti. And Shakti is the source of everything. Yes or no? Do we accept this or not? Shakti is the foundation for everything. And with this, they close chapter 1. And the chapter 2 starts with the nature of Puranic knowledge and the power of Śravana. Again, there is the emphasis on the Śravana is given. Sutta then explained that the nature of Puranic revelations is not just merely stories but vehicles of truth adapted in the human mind. While the Vedas are subtle and difficult to grasp, the Puranas communicate the same through narration, symbolism, and devotion. Sutta Maharishi emphasized that listening itself is a spiritual act, students. This is something which we need to remember. That is, sound is the first subtle element, and through sound alone, consciousness is awakened. Sutta Maharishi further explained that ignorant people live driven by what are the things? Food, sleep, desire, and lacking discrimination. But such people are compared to not human beings, but they are just animals. Not as an insult, but as a statement of inner limitation. Yet, even animals respond to sound. Yes or no, students? Even animals respond to the sound. Thus, the sense of hearing is the most powerful of all senses. Through hearing sacred narratives, the intellect grows and the sinful tendencies reduce and merits start to accumulate. This is something very important for us to again reinforce the idea that why Śravaṇam is very important for us. He further explained that The sound itself has three qualities according to the three gunas. Sattvika sound uplifts the soul, leads to liberation. The Rajasika sounds stimulate the activity and desire. And the Tamasika sound leads to confusion and degradation. Even the sacred literature has gradations, and among all forms of sacred sound, students, it is believed that the Puranas occupy a unique place because they harmonize devotion, knowledge, and righteous living. Having established the greatness of Śravana, Suta is preparing the assembly for deeper cosmological narration that is followed in the third chapter. Let us now look into the third chapter where the actual narration is starting. Chapter 3, Pralaya and the cosmic sleep of Vishnu. Sutta Maharishi described that the state of universe at the time of Pralaya, when the cycle of creation dissolved, the three worlds were immersed in boundless water, it seems. All forms, names, and distinctions had dissolved into an undifferentiated state. In those waters rested our none other than Mahavishnu, reclining upon Adisesha, immersed in Yoga Nidra. This sleep was not ordinary consciousness, students, but a cosmic suspension orchestrated by Devi herself. Brahma, the creator, remained present but powerless. For creation cannot proceed without the activation of Shakti. The universe waited in stillness, held in potential alone. And from here, Sutta Maharishi goes to chapter 4 of Bhāgavatam, the emergence of Madhu and Kaitaba. The story is getting slowly and slowly interesting. From the ears of Vishnu, the wax that is there, it's believed that as he's asleep, emerged two powerful daityas, asuras, namely the Madhu and Kaitaba. They were immense in strength, fearless, and arrogant. Both in the primal waters, they moved freely within and they began to reflect upon their existence. They questioned the nature of causation, students, wondering from where the waters arose and who supported them actually. Through their own contemplation, Kaitaba concluded that it must be Shakti who sustained the waters and all the beings within them. At the moment, they heard a subtle sound, the Vak Bija mantra, resonating through the cosmos. Drawn by this sound, they practiced intense austerities, focusing their minds and restraining their senses. After 1,000 years of tapas, Parashakti was pleased. Without manifesting a form, she granted a boon to them. Blinded by pride, they asked for death only when they desired it. The boon was granted not as a blessing, but as the seed of their eventual downfall. From there, Sutta Maharishi goes to the chapter 5, Arrogance and the Fear of Brahma. Empowered by the boon, Madhu and Kaitaba roamed the cosmic waters, challenging all the beings. They encountered none other than Brahma himself, seated upon his lotus feet, and mocked him, questioning his worthiness and threatening the life of Brahma itself. Brahma, shaken by their arrogance, realized his helplessness. Brahma reflected upon the four means of resolution, consolation, gift, punishment, and division, and understood that none would work against these beings as they are intoxicated by power. He resolved that only Vishnu could confront them and thus traveled along the lotus stem to awaken him. And from here, it goes to chapter 6 by Maharishi Sutta, where he explains the failure to awaken Mahavishnu. Brahma pleaded with Vishnu, praising him as the sustainer of the universe and imploring him to rise and protect the creation. Yet Vishnu remained unmoved, deeply asleep under the influence of Yoga Nidra. Brahma then realized a profound truth, students. What it is? Vishnu himself was under the authority of a supreme power. And who is the supreme power? No suspense. It is Parashakti herself. Turning away from Vishnu, Brahma surrendered to Yoga Nidra Devi because Brahma is not knowing who is the one who is even behind the power of Vishnu. Because Brahma is assuming that Yoga Nidra is the power of Vishnu actually. So, what Brahma does? He offers namaskaram to that Yoga Nidra. And that's the reason in the Devi Stuti we have Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Nidra Rupena Samstita. How Nidra is not ignorance. Nidra is Devi herself. In the right sense, we have the right amount of sleep. That itself is Devi, and that in itself is a upasana to this body, mind, and soul, actually. Okay. So, what is happening further? Let's look into it. So, therefore, Brahma, like understands the powerlessness which is there with Vishnu, and he worships the Yoga Nidra Devi, acknowledging her as the power behind creation, sustenance, and dissolution. He recognized that without her will, even Vishnu was powerless. Brahma declared that if she did not withdraw her power, creation itself would collapse. And moved by Brahma's surrender, Devi withdrew the Nidra from Vishnu and allowing him to awaken. And from here, we go to chapter 7, the long battle and the hidden impasse. Upon awakening, Vishnu reassured Brahma and confronted Madhu and Kaitaba. The Daityas challenged Vishnu openly, and a fierce battle ensued into the cosmic waters. For not 1 day or 2 days, but for 5,000 years, Vishnu tirelessly fought these two Daityas. Yet, despite Vishnu's strength, he grew weary while the asuras remained as powerful as they were and alternating in the battle, never losing the vitality. Vishnu reflected deeply and realized that the boon of Icha Mrityu rendered them undefeatable through force. Understanding that direct combat would never succeed, he sought refuge to the ultimate Shakti, to Devi herself once again. And from here, Suta moves to the chapter 8 to focus upon the worship and the supremacy of Shakti. And before the final resolution, the rishis question Suta regarding the apparent contradiction. How could Supreme Being, Vishnu, who is Paramatma, who is among the supreme of the Trimurtis, fall under the influence of Maya? Sutta very clearly answers this that while people worship various deities, Vishnu, Shiva, Surya, Agni, all the divine operate only through the foundation of Adi Shakti. In Brahma, she acts as Srishti Shakti. In Vishnu, she acts as the Sthiti Shakti. And in Shiva, she acts as the Samhara Shakti. So without her, no devatas can function. Even Shiva without Shakti is inert in nature. Thus, the Trimurtis themselves worship Parabrahmaswarupini Parameshwari. She alone is Brahman, students, both Sagunam and the Nirguna Tattva. That wise must fix the devotion upon her. So, this very strong philosophical foundation is given in chapter 8. And from here, the chapter 9 moves to continue with the story of chapter 7, the destruction of Madhu and Kaitaba. Why this chapter 8 is giving this philosophical ground, students, I'll explain in the second section. So let's now look into the chapter 9, the destruction of Madhu and Kaitaba. Vishnu approached Devi and praised her as Mahamaya, acknowledging her limitless powers and confessing that only through her grace could the Daityas be defeated. Devi instructed him to employ strategies rather than strength. She would enchant the Daityas, and Vishnu must act in that moment. Returning to the battle, Vishnu challenged Madhu and Kaitaba once again. As they fought, Devi cast a single glance filled with enchantment. The Daityas became mesmerized, motionless, and their minds captivated by her beauty. Seizing that moment, Vishnu offered them a boon. Arrogantly, they told him to ask instead, actually. They were saying, "We are more powerful than you. Who are you to give us boon? We will give you the boon to you," actually. Vishnu declared that they should die by his hands. Trapped by their own words, they requested death only where there was no water. Vishnu placed them upon his thighs above the waters and with his chakra served their heads. Their marrow spread across the waters, and the earth became, at that point of time, as Medini. Suta concluded by declaring that no power surpasses Parashakti. Whether worshipped in the form or beyond, she alone is the supreme reality revealed by all the Vedas and the Shastras. Clear to all of you students. Now, let us try to understand the philosophical implication that is coming in, students. The chapter 1 establishes that the spiritual truth begins with the right question and not with information, as I explained in the previous session, that is in the Māhātmyam. The rishis are not ignorant students, they are already learned, disciplined, and accomplished. Yet they admit the insufficiency. This is critical. The Purana teaches that knowledge without humility becomes stagnation. The rishis' request for Devi Bhagavatam signals a shift from knowing about reality to knowing the reality itself, students. The rishis institute that liberation is not attained merely by ritual, logic, or intellectual mastery, but by alignment by the source, the power behind all functions. Philosophically, the first chapter explains us that truth is relational, students, not merely proportional. Revelation happens where our ego recedes. Shakti reveals herself only where receptivity exists, actually. This is also a critique of spiritual arrogance, students, that we all carry. The greatest sages still listen. This is what we have to understand. No matter how much we know, we have to continue to learn. And that listening is the first act of surrender. And from there, the chapter 2 talks about the sounds as the architecture of consciousness. The Puranas introduce the Shabda as the bridge between matter and consciousness, which I explained to all of you in the previous class in the Māhātmyam. Sound is not treated as a sensory entertainment, students, but as a formative force that structures the awareness. The classification of sound into Sattvika, Rajasika, and Tamasika is deeply psychological, students. Why? Because we are habitually listening to all those things that literally shapes our inner world. Therefore, this chapter quietly teaches that culture is destiny, a civilization obsessed with noisy, reactive, divisive sounds cannot cultivate clarity or compassion. The emphasis of hearing Puranas is not moralistic, students. Please understand this. It is neurological and spiritual in nature. And repeatedly listening to the sacred Purana, particularly the Bhagavatam, reorganizes our perception. It gives the three hidden messages to us students. What is that? Liberation does not begin with silence. Very important. And number two, it begins with the right sound. And number three, the mind becomes what it repeatedly hears. Very important for us to note this. So, in today's context, this chapter is a warning about informational overload and a reminder that attention is the sacred energy. And from here, chapter 3 talks about the cosmic sleep and the limits of control. Pralaya is not destruction, students. It is the withdrawal of a function. When Vishnu sleeps, it means order itself has paused completely. This chapter, that is the chapter 3, dismantles the illusion that existence run autonomously. Even the preserver, that is Mahavishnu, does not act independently. Preservation requires primarily three things, students: energy, timing, and will. And all these three things belongs to Shakti. Let me repeat it once again. Preservation requires three things: energy, timing, and will. And all these three things are belonging to what? Shakti, Shakti alone. So, therefore, this chapter teaches us three things according to me. Consciousness without energy is inert in nature. Number one. Number two, system collapses not due to evil, but due to withdrawal of the sustaining forces. And number three, control is never absolute, even at the cosmic level. So, therefore, this is a direct challenge, students, to modern managerial thinking. All those managers who are sitting right in front of me, going to offices and managing things, both at offices or business, please understand that this is a direct challenge to the modern managerial thinking, because the belief that everything can be engineered, regulated, or optimized indefinitely is not always correct. Therefore, Bhagavatam clearly says when Shakti is withdrawn, even Devatas, they themselves must wait actually. Nothing can be done. And from here, chapter 4 talks about the birth of power but without wisdom. Madhu and Kaitaba, students, are born from Vishnu's, the wax which is there in the ears, from unprocessed residue, which we have to understand. This is highly symbolic, students, because they arise from what consciousness has not integrated actually. Their questioning of the casuality shows intelligence, but their conclusion is actually incomplete. They intuit Shakti, but they do not submit to her actually. Their tapas is powerful, but their intention is highly egoistic in nature. Therefore, this chapter teaches three important things to us. Tapas does not actually purify us, number one. Number two, spiritual efforts without surrender amplifies the most dangerous thing, students: ego. And number three, boons without wisdom is nothing but curse. Because you see, they had boons, but ultimately, what happened to them actually? Therefore, Icha Mrityu represents the ultimate illusion, students, of what? Autonomy. Because nobody is autonomous here actually. The belief that I decide everything is the seed of downfall. In modern life, this mirrors unchecked ambition, scientific hubris, and spiritual materialism, students. And from here, we go to chapter 5, where we understand that authority is marked by ignorance, actually. Brahma represents the institutional authority and formal legitimacy. Madhu and Kaitaba mocking Brahma shows what happens when power loses reverence for order. And this particular chapter again talks about three things according to me. Authority without inner strength collapses. Number two, knowledge without Shakti cannot protect itself. And number three, creation itself is fragile, students. But when energy completely gets misaligned, then the creation is fragile. Brahma's fear is not covered eyes, students. He's not a covered Lord Brahma here. It is realism actually. Brahma understands that the procedural power cannot defeat raw arrogance. This mirrors modern institution students, governments, universities, legal systems being challenged by forces no longer respecting legitimacy. And this we are seeing from the time of Srishti itself. And from here, we are going to chapter 6, the failure of strongest solutions. Vishnu's inability to awaken exposes a very shocking truth. Even supreme order is conditional. Brahma's realization that Devi must be addressed directly marks a very critical philosophical turn, students. And this particular chapter again teaches three important things to us. Number one, there is a level of reality where hierarchy collapses. And number two, it causes deep the cause lies deeper than function. And number three, power flows upward only when aligned downward, actually. And therefore, what it is, the Yoga Nidra here is not ignorance, it is Shakti's sovereignty. For the seeker, like for us, this chapter teaches surrender at the deepest level, students. Surrender is not an act of weakness, but a recognition of the truth. And from here, we move to chapter 7, where futility of endless struggle is understood by us. 5,000 years, students, not 1 or 2 days, as I'm saying. 5,000 years of battle, symbolizing what? Repetitive efforts without insight, actually. Vishnu's fatigue shows that even divine willpower fails when strategy ignores the root cause. Therefore, this chapter critiques three important things: the burnout culture, the endless conflict cycles, and number three, the belief that persistence alone guarantees the victory. Real transformation, students, we have to understand this. Real transformation does not occur through repetition, it occurs through understanding the hidden conditions. The moment we understand the hidden condition, we understand how the repetition works in the smoothest manner, actually. Therefore, the moment Vishnu reflects, instead of fighting, the evolution begins. And from here, we go to the resolution of the God centric problem, and that's the way I'm calling chapter 8. This is a doctrinal heart of the text, students, because the apparent contradiction that Vishnu being supreme yet overpowered dissolves when Shakti is recognized as the substratum of all divinity. This chapter clearly explains again three important things according to me: that devatas are functional expressions, not isolated absolutes. Number one, Shakti is Brahman in motion. And number three, Saguna and Nirguna are not opposites but modes of operations in the cosmic world. The statement Shiva without Shakti is a corpse is not sectarian, students. It is the ontological question which we need to deeply understand as we progress in sadhana. It declares that existence itself is energy dependent. This is very important for all of us. And chapter 9, liberation through insight and not force. The final destruction of Madhu and Kaitaba students is not a violent triumph, it is an epistemic collapse. Why? They are defeated by their perception when their perception is altered. Devi's enchantment is symbolic of Maya reversing itself. That is, illusion is dissolving illusion actually. The killing on the Vishnu's thighs represents transcendent students. That is beyond duality, neither land or water, neither conditioned nor unconditioned actually. This chapter again teaches three important things for us. What it is? Liberation comes through timing and clarity. Ego collapses when seen, not when attacked. Grace completes what efforts cannot make. Therefore, to put all these things together, as I have five tablets to you, students. Shakti is not secondary power. She, that is Devi, is the reality in action. This is number one. Number two, strength without awareness exhausts itself completely. And number three, ego disguises itself as the autonomy. And we should be very, very careful when our mind starts functioning in those dimensions, because that is the moment when we are being defeated, actually. And when we are in sadhana, Devi talks within us and she stops us when such things happens within us, actually. And number four, surrender is not passivity, it is an alignment. And number five, transformation happens through insight, not domination. This is not ancient mythology. This is a manual of power, responsibility, and consciousness in every age, including the times in which we are living. And if I have to conclude this, in a sense, we have to understand that this the entire Bhagavatam, because if we have to understand the stories that we are coming across, these are not just stories. If I have to put it across, they are pastimes actually. It has immense relevance, students. In the modern world, we see unprecedented capabilities of technology, military, economic, and informational spaces. Nations possess weapons capable of annihilating the planet multiple times over. Corporations wield influence greater than many governments. Individuals command platforms that can shape public thought globally within seconds. And yet, anxiety, conflict, ecological collapse, and moral confusions are only intensifying day by day. Why? Have you ever thought about it? Because like Madhu and Kaitaba, modern power is often divorced from wisdom, restraint, and reverence. We have mastered how to act, but not when, why, or whether we should act actually. The Purana, that is Bhagavatam, would call this power born of tapas but unrefined by Shakti. A prominent example can be seen in the technological dominance, students, especially the artificial intelligence and the algorithmic systems. They talk about that they are created with immense intelligence and speed, yet increasingly they act beyond human comprehension or control, like the Daityas. They arise from human ears, from data, input, information, yet begin to question their own source and authority. When creators themselves say, we no longer fully understand what we have built, the Puranas, like Bhagavatam, gives the warning that it becomes alive in front of our eyes. Power without Shakti, without ethical grounding, compassion, and higher awareness becomes uncontrollable at some stage in our life. Another clear example lies in the political and the ideological extremism. Across the world, we see movements driven by absolute certainty, convinced that They all possess truth and legitimacy. They demand submission, ridicule restraint, and threaten annihilation of the other. Like Madhu and Kaitaba mocking Brahma, such forces see a dialogue as weakness and humility and cowardice. History repeatedly shows students that these movements do not collapse due to external enemies alone, but they collapse due to internal blindness, their inability to perceive limits. That blindness is precisely what Devi removes, not by force, students, but by enchantment, by altering perception itself. Now, observe the most crucial turning point in the story. That is, neither Brahma nor Vishnu resolves the crisis through authority or command. Resolution occurs only when complete surrender to Devi happens. Brahma surrenders first, admitting that even creation is impossible without Parashakti. Vishnu surrenders next, admitting that even preservation cannot proceed without her guidance. Only then does the solution arise, not as violence, but as viveka, strategy, timing, and insight. Therefore, Bhagavatam is the deepest teaching for today's individual seekers' well being. In personal life, Madhu and Kaitaba appear as unchecked ego, compulsive desire, unexamined habits, addictions, and the belief that I can stop whenever I want or I can do whatever I feel like. Many people fight these inner demons for years, sometimes decades, using sheer willpower, discipline, and suppression. Like Vishnu fighting for 5,000 years, they grow tired, frustrated, and hopeless. The Devi Bhagavatam tells us clearly, students, one thing which you should note it down. The solution is not mere force, but a shift in the consciousness. When awareness changes, when perception is enchanted, when we can see clearly, students, the grip dissolves instantly. Shakti is not here merely as a goddess to be worshipped externally, students. She is the very intelligence that reorients our consciousness, the power that reveals blind spots, the grace that loosens rigid identities. When that grace arises, even the strongest inner demons become helpless. Not because it is crushed, but because it is seen through. And finally, the Purana resolves the apparent contradiction of the Saguna and the Nirguna Brahman students. Devi is both, there is no doubt in this. She enchants and liberates, binds and frees, manifests and dissolves. The same power that puts Vishnu to sleep even awakens him. The same Maya that creates bondage becomes the path to transcendence. This is not contradiction, students. This is completeness. Therefore, the message of these chapters is profoundly relevant to each one of us students. Why? Because power must bow to wisdom. Action must be guided by awareness, and no system, cosmic, social, political, or even personal, can sustain itself unless it aligns with Shakti. To recognize Shakti is not to reject reason or strength, but to place them in the right relationship. This is the eternal relevance that we are deriving as sadhakas from Śrīmad Devi Bhagavatam. With this, I end this class, and I hope you're all going to enjoy the reading of the first 9 chapters from whichever author you have got. Please read with this lens, or if you're developing a better lens or a framework, please share it with all of us, and we would be happy to know. Reading and writing is a part of this Mahayajna that we are performing in terms of learning the Bhagavatam. Please, all of you, continue to learn and be happy and grow in different dimensions of your life and living. Thank you so much. Let's do the Mangalam to finish off the session. ॐ सर्वमङ्गलमाङ्गल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थसाधिके शरण्ये त्र्यम्बके गौरि नारायणि नमोऽस्तु ते जयन्ती मङ्गला काली भद्रकाली कपालिनी दुर्गा क्षमा शिवा धात्री स्वाहा स्वदा नमोऽस्तु ते दुर्गे स्मृता हरसि भीतिमशेषजन्तोः स्वस्tai स्मृता मतिमतीव शुभान् ददासि दारिद्र्यदुःखभयहारिणिका त्वदन्या सर्वोपकारकरणाय सदा प्रचिद्धा श्रीदुर्गायै नमः सर्वं श्रीचण्डी महालक्ष्मी अर्पणमस्तु तथास्तु. Thank you so